Hello, you are watching the FinTech Magazine Show, brought to you by FinTech Magazine, InsurTech Magazine, and the BizClik Media Group. My name's Joanna England, and here we bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from the world of FinTech every month, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and our other digital platforms. Now, joining me today for our final show of 2022, along with all the festive graphics and fun, is FinTech and InsurTech editor, Clere. Hi, Alex. How are you today?
Nearly Christmas.
You were just muted slightly just then, but yes, Merry Christmas. And I just wanted to say, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't wear your elf hat, but I can see you've got a bit of a Christmas jumper on. Can you show us that?
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah, I've got my best festive garb on, a little Rudolph, and hopefully you might be able to see him sparkling as well during the show.
Brilliant. Okay. Now, just a quick reminder for you all to come and say hello or wish us a Merry Christmas by posting in the comments section below, and also for you to go and vote in our LinkedIn poll, the results of which we'll have later in the show for you. Alex, can you remind us what the poll is this week, please?
Yeah, of course. So the poll this week is, which fintech trend will have the biggest impact on the fintech space in 2023? So we're looking ahead to next year, and we want to know if you think A, embedded finance, B, alternative finance, C, AI innovation, or D, the metaverse will be the biggest trend of next year. The poll is on our LinkedIn and it's open for you to vote now.
That's right, and we'll be sharing the results of that poll at the end of the show, but there is of course loads to talk about before then. So let's start by taking a look at some fintech and insurtech news. Now, because it's almost the end of the year, and what a year it's been, we thought we'd do something slightly different. So instead of picking up the top most recent news stories from the past few weeks, Alex has actually picked out two of the most defining stories from 2022. I'm intrigued, Alex, so I'm going to hand that over to you.
Okay, sure thing. So I think when we look back at 2022, I don't think it's going to go down as a particularly good vintage, so to speak. The year has been defined by economic instability, inflation, high interest rates, mass layoffs right across the tech sector. I read this week that more than 21,000 finance jobs have been lost this year and around 8,000 more in crypto, so close to 30,000 layoffs in total. I would say that this will end up being one of the most defining themes of the year in fintech. But one of the most significant stories, certainly when it comes to crypto, I think, is actually one from the past few weeks. And no prizes for guessing that it's the fallout from the collapse of FTX. Now, a lot has been said and written about the specifics of what happened, the allegations, the recriminations after the fact. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. We know that there was a run on withdrawals from crypto holders after rumours circulated about FTX's financial health. Binance then offered to bail out the exchange, then it withdrew, and now founder Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested in the Bahamas as part of an ongoing investigation. All of that has been reasonably well documented. Instead, I wanted to focus for a minute on what the broader implications could be. Crypto was already having a really bad year up until that point. And I know there are people that think the industry gets a bit of a bad rap in the media, but in the first 10 months of the year, crypto had been defined by wildly fluctuating valuations and the looming threat of more regulation to come. In the US, they've promised to introduce greater regulation already next year. And in Europe, I think they'll struggle now to avoid it. Some people, lost tens of thousands of their own money when FTX collapsed. So I think regulators are going to have to act in some way. If it protects consumers, then of course that will be a good thing. We were all expecting greater regulation and greater scrutiny next year regardless. One thing that might be interesting is whether we'll see more struggling crypto businesses. As one expert put it, crypto winters have this habit of shaking out weaker players. Everybody's facing a squeeze on their cost of living, and for many retail investors, crypto is a fairly low priority right now. So will we see more players crash out of the crypto space? And if we do, will we see greater consolidation? We might end up with regulators circling from two different angles. Firstly, to try and tighten up those rules around crypto investments, hopefully to prevent a repeat of the FTX debacle, but also greater focus on antitrust issues to try and stop power being concentrated in too few hands, especially if we do indeed see more crypto exchanges and crypto businesses either going bust or being bailed out. So although I've chosen the FTX affair as my defining fintech story of 2022, it's really part of a much broader trend. It's been a pretty turbulent year, to say the least, for cryptocurrencies, but I think 2023 will be less defined by price volatility and sensationalist stories like the FTX one, and more by what regulators do to try and tighten up the industry.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the key takeaway for me in all this is that although there are a lot of young, dynamic and brilliant entrepreneurs entering the DeFi space, unfortunately, because of that, there's also a serious lack of business experience involved. And running a company is obviously a massive undertaking in itself, and clearly not crossing the T's and dotting the I's has, as far as we know, caused tremendous problems in the case of FTX. I suppose ultimately, if you lack experience but you enter an established industry, then the regulatory framework tends to protect you a little bit more from making too many mistakes. So I agree. I think, hopefully this is something that we're going to see more of in the crypto space in 2023. But moving on, Alex, why don't you share with us your story from InsurTech?
Yeah, of course. So my InsurTech story for the year has to be the war in Ukraine. It feels perhaps a little bit insensitive to choose this as an insurance story. It is a humanitarian story after all, one that's had a real impact on people's lives. But the reason I've picked it out specifically as an insurance story is because I think it's had a much bigger knock-on effect on the rest of finance generally than we might actually realise. Obviously, there's the impact on energy prices, on supply chains, on inflation, but it's led to some interesting developments within insurance and InsurTech. So the first thing that happened within the first few months of the invasion was that businesses had to temporarily suspend a lot of their activity in Ukraine. Insurance companies began pulling out of Russia and divesting any businesses that they had in Russia. So Allianz offloaded a majority stake in its Russian operations, and large companies like Swiss Re and Zurich, along with Western banks and other financial services providers, stopped accepting new clients in Russia. Then came sanctions, of course, and this meant two things really for the insurance sector. Firstly, it meant that processes like KYC and onboarding had to be tightened up. There were different sanctions lists for the EU, the UK, which of course isn't part of the EU anymore, the US, Canada. They all had different sanctions lists. So it became a lot harder for companies to cross-reference individuals against all of those lists to make sure they weren't breaking the law by accepting new customers who were sanctioned. The second implication was that some of these sanctions had a direct impact on the way insurance was sold. So firstly, the EU promised to reduce its commitment on Russian oil and gas as a way of cutting Russia off financially. But then it decided this wasn't having enough of an impact because Russia was still exporting to third-party countries who'd essentially been neutral on sanctions. So then the EU decided to ban European countries from insuring or financing the transport of oil between Russia and third-party states, particularly through maritime routes. The UK then copied that ban in November. That essentially meant that it was almost impossible for vessels to carry Russian oil to get insurance because the largest insurers are based in either Europe or the UK. It also raises another interesting aside in that, having spent the best part of 5 years since the Brexit referendum saying that it would diverge from all European regulations and European laws, the UK basically began adopting every EU sanction, not just cargo insurance, but sanctions on individuals, sanctions on companies. In many cases, it seemed that the EU and the US were moving first, and then the UK was following. The war in Ukraine also caused new demand for insurance products. One example is the insurance company Ascot providing cover for grain and food products transitioning through safe corridors in the Black Sea. That was after those famous blockades were lifted. So certainly the events in Ukraine have caused a ripple of consequences for insurance companies, just as it has for consumers. I know a couple of weeks ago you wrote about the impact that the sanctions were having on European insurers, the fact that it was nearly impossible to assess whether the measures had worked and indeed whether the companies were complying with them correctly, and how it was causing backlogs for vessels travelling through Turkish waters. The final thing is cyber insurance. Most insurers were withdrawing from Russia, but to begin with, anybody still insuring a Russian company would have the added risk of sort of vigilante hackers trying to get into Russian infrastructure. Then the events in Ukraine led to heightened cyber risk for everybody, either through state-sponsored attacks or just individual actors acting alone. And so as a result, the cost of premiums went up. Now we face a situation where some small and medium-sized businesses genuinely might not be able to afford cyber insurance, and yet at the same time they can't afford not to have it. So clearly there have been a lot of different lines within the insurance industry that have been majorly impacted by just one single event.
That's right. It's a really interesting one because generally, although the insurance industry is traditionally not seen as a kind of tool for fending off or controlling any kind of political conflict, it's obviously been quite instrumental in this. But we also see it, because we've seen it sort of playing a significant role in fending off those oil shipments from Russia, which has, as you rightly pointed out, caused quite a backlog of shipments within Turkey and the ports of Ankara. So, I mean, I hope that the paperwork glitches get sorted out in time for Christmas for those tanker captains, because obviously nobody wants to also be stuck at sea for the holidays as well. But moving swiftly on, have we got any comments that we can go to from LinkedIn, Alex? What have we got?
Let's take a look quickly here. Yes, we've got greetings from a few different places. Hello to Eid from Somalia. We have a user from Nigeria. We have Essa. Hello, Essa. Thank you for your contribution. And Olafemi as well from Nigeria as well. Hello, Olafemi. Thanks for joining us.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we'll be giving you our usual interview sneak peek, which this month is with Dirk Cruz, who is the Managing Director and CEO of SAP Pioneer. So don't go away.
Our vision and mission is to be a digital bank with a human touch. I'm Jaz Narang, Chief Transformation Officer and Head of Operations at Santander UK. Santander UK is the 5th largest bank in the country. We're challenging the top 4 banks in the country like the Lloyds and the HSBCs of the world. We're down for servicing customers both across the digital as well as the physical brick and mortar space. The last couple of years during the pandemic have been revolutionary. We've seen change like no other era in the recent history. Digital adoption in the banking space by customers has been 7 to 10x compared to the pre-pandemic era. Investing very, very heavily in our transformation capabilities, in our digital capabilities, in our offerings. We're going to develop our digital capabilities to both onboard new customers to the bank and to help service our existing customers in a seamless fashion. Our main goal is to help businesses and people prosper as a result of the offerings that we have.
Welcome back. Now, still to come, we have the results of our LinkedIn poll. But recently, I also spoke to Dirk Cruz, Managing Director and CEO of SAP Pioneer. And we spoke about a wide range of things, which you can, of course, find out about when the full interview goes live on our news website next week. But until then, here's a snippet from that conversation.
What trends are we seeing emerging in insurance? Obviously, from your integrated platform point of view, you would have to be looking forward at the market and seeing how things are going to change so that you can then offer more services and tools and solutions. What trends are we seeing in insurance, and what will be the big disruptors in 2023?
We see that we, on the one hand side, have a couple of insurtechs focusing on technology, things like AI, for instance. Yeah. But on the other side, it's around user experience. It's around new business models and platforms sitting on the customer relationship. So that's basically the trends we see. There are a couple of differences, because that's what you asked for initially, between insurtechs and banking. Insurtechs basically falls into the two categories: couple of tech-focused players, and then sitting on the distribution channel. If I look at fintechs, we have, my view is we have more vertical approaches, taking smaller end-to-end pieces, entire processes out of the banking portfolio, like buy now, pay later, specific payment services, supply chain financing, trade finance, these elements, and then you have specific fintechs focusing on these aspects. Yeah, it's always difficult to cover this last aspect of your question. It's always difficult to map that on a calendar year. But I would guess the embedded finance topic is definitely the biggest trend from a midterm perspective. So the growing together, coming together on platforms, that is definitely the biggest change or the biggest disruptor, if you want it.
So there we have it. Dirk Cruz, CEO and MD of SAP Pioneer, predicts that the biggest trend in 2023 to affect both fintech and insurtech will be embedded services. Now, of course, you can have your say on our poll about this, and you still have a little bit of time to register your opinion there. But first, because we're talking about big things that have happened this year, let's take a moment to talk about FinTech Live 2022, which happened in November and was an absolutely fantastic 2 days, packed with presentations, panels and fireside chats about the global FinTech industry. Now, if you were there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you weren't, here's a quick recap.
Good morning, everyone. This is FinTech Live London 2022.
We're extremely humbled and honored to once again headline FinTech Live right here at the magazine in London.
It's an incredible time to be around the financial services industry these days.
Currently in the UK, we have 6.6 million users of open banking.
What strikes me is the volume of people that are here. You know, incredibly well attended.
The speakers are really good. It's a really good show.
Great venue, great speakers. Couldn't ask for more.
Seeing the number of people and the talent that's here in London, it's kind of inspiring.
And there you have it. What a great event that was. And you can, of course, join us next year for our FinTech Live event in 2023, which will be happening in November as well. So make a note in your diaries for that. It really is a not to be missed occasion.
Indeed, and you can register your interest now for 2023 by going to fintechmagazine.com and clicking on Live in the menu.
Brilliant. Okay, so now moving swiftly on, it's time for our magazine focus. We have one final issue of FinTech Magazine to look at before the year finishes. Our December issue is out now. So Alex, over to you for that one.
Yeah, so our December issue of FinTech Magazine, as you said, is out now. This month, the cover star is Daniel Shelane, CEO of Tink, Europe's leading open banking platform. He talks to us about his journey in building a company that now reaches 250 million customers, as well as the experience of being an entrepreneur. We've spoken briefly about small and medium-sized businesses already. They are the lifeblood of most economies. In Europe alone, 99% of businesses are classed as either being small or medium-sized. So this month we have a feature on the financial software that's making accounting and tax and invoicing much simpler for these small and medium-sized businesses. We also explore the alternative finance space. We take a look at how fintechs are managing to remain resilient in difficult economic circumstances, and we take a look back through the revolution that has undoubtedly occurred in the world of mobile banking. So that's all in December's issue of FinTech Magazine. Just go to fintechmagazine.com.
Thanks, Alex. Now, don't forget, everyone, that you can check out those issues and more via the link, which should be appearing below any second now. But let's move on now and take a look at the final results of the poll. Alex, can you just remind us what's happening with the poll?
Yeah, of course. So we asked you which fintech trend will have the biggest impact on the fintech space in 2023. And I'm glad to say that more than 550 of you have cast your vote for this. If you haven't already, it'll be open for a little while longer, so you can go and have an impact on the final decision. But the numbers are in, and we have the top answer was embedded finance on 40%, followed closely by AI innovation on 35%. Alternative finance received 19%, and unfortunately not much love for the metaverse, which only got 5% of your predictions. But those are what you think will be the biggest trend in fintech next year.
Yeah, so our audience does agree with the embedded services option, but we had a couple of interesting comments too. What do you think of that, Alex?
Yeah, we did have a couple of comments on that poll from people saying none of the above. So you don't think any of those four will be the biggest driving trend behind fintech next year. The poll, as I say, it's still open on our LinkedIn if you want to go and take part. Tell us what you think. If you don't like any of our choices, let us know what you think the biggest fintech trend will be.
Absolutely. Let us know your ideas, because that's what we're all about. But thank you for everyone who voted. Now, we're almost done for today's show, but we've got one last trick up our sleeves. I don't know much about this, Alex, but I hear you've got some sort of festive end of the show for me.
I do indeed, yeah. I thought it's Christmas, so why not have a little bit of festive fun? So what we've done is we've picked out the names of 5 real fintechs who all have slightly Christmas sounding names. We've also invented 5 fake fintechs as well. So you're going to have to tell the difference between these festive sounding fintechs and the fintechs that we've just made up out of thin air. So let's have the first one on screen if we can. We're going to start quite traditional. So which of these is a real fintech? Is it Flock on the left, a London-based insurtech that provides digital insurance for fleets, including cars, vans, or trucks? Or is it Holly on the right, a New York-based fintech that offers investment software, providing insights and analytics to hedge fund managers? Flock or Holly, which do you think is the real festive-themed fintech?
That's a really tricky one. I might have to put my hat on. Okay.
The special Christmas hat.
Now, both of those sound really convincing, but I think I'm going to go for Flock, mainly because Holly sounds perhaps a little bit obvious.
Okay, you're going to go for Flock. Let's see if Flock is the right answer.
Flock.
It is, of course, Flock. Yeah, we invented Holly, completely made up. So that's 1 for 1. You're doing well so far. The thinking hat is working.
It is.
Let's move on to number 2, see if you can tell these apart. So the next 2 are Stable and Gift. Is it Stable, a technology company that helps businesses to understand and manage volatile commodity prices? Or is it Gift, that's spelled G-Y-F-T, a consumer app that lets users transfer cash, loyalty points and vouchers through a single digital wallet? Stable or Gift?
See, now you've tricked me with the funny spelling of Gift, because that is so typical of fintech branding.
Well, have I tricked you?
Huh?
Well,
no, I'm not choosing Gift.
Do
you know, despite that, I'm going to go for Stable.
You're going to go for Stable.
Yeah.
Let's see if you were right to go with Stable. Yeah, you spotted my ploy a mile off. It's not Gift. It is indeed Stable. You got 2 Christmas-themed fintechs so far. Let's move on to number 3. And number 3, we're going to move on to insurance. So which of these is a real insurtech? Is it Cabbage, which provides yield insurance to small holdings, allotment owners, and independent growers? Or is it Carrot, which specialises in usage-based car insurance?
Cabbage sounds like it does what it says on the tin. However, experience tells me that branding doesn't often reflect what the company does. And I'm a little bit, it's a bit of a cheat really, because I'm a little bit familiar with Carrot, which is of course based in Singapore. Is that correct?
It might be.
The headquarters in Singapore. No, that's my answer. I'm going to go for Carrot.
I knew I wouldn't get all 5 of these past you. You are indeed right. It is Carrot. I'm going to have to work on some of these fake brands. We'll get you next time. So let's move on to number 4. We've got 2 more to go. So we're staying on the Christmas dinner table now. So a popular Christmas staple, of course, is sausages wrapped in blankets, sometimes known as piggies in blankets. Sausages wrapped in bacon, I should say, sometimes known as piggies in blankets. But which of these is actually a real fintech? Is it Piggies, a social saving tool that lets users deposit spare change into a virtual piggy bank? Or is it Blanket, a personal contents insurance app that lets you take out cover on things like bicycles and phones?
Again, you know, that's the names of the apps are very appropriate. But for this one, I think I'm going to pick Blanket.
You're going for Blanket?
Yep, that's my choice.
Let's take a look at the answer. It is Blanket. You're 4 for 4. You're doing well. I'm not getting any of these fake fintechs past you, but maybe we'll see if that changes on the 5th and final question. So the last fintech we've got for you, and this one might be the most Christmassy of them all. Which of these is a real financial app based in Dubai that allows people to save, store, and send money overseas? Is it Jingle Pay or Rudolph Pay?
Well, I'm going to go for Jingle Pay because I used to live in Dubai, so I'm fully versed with sort of a lot of the stuff that goes on there, and Jingle Pay is very familiar to me, so that's my answer.
Yeah, as much as we'd love Rudolph Pay to be a real thing, I don't need to hold you in suspense. You have got that one correct. You got all 5 of them right. I didn't manage to sneak past a Christmassy fake fintech, but well done. You spotted all 5 of the real ones. Just a bit of festive fun for you.
Oh, well done. That was really great and really good creativity with all the branding. I love that. Good job, Alex. Now, sadly, that's all we have time for. And as always, it's been a pleasure. So thank you, Alex, for all your brilliant insights and your fantastic game. Our last end of the show for 2022. And of course, thank you to the production team and Ernie, who's done a terrific job and really kind of Christmassed up our last show of 2022 as well, and made it feel really festive. We'll be back in the new year with more fintech facts and news. So wherever you are, have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year from us. Goodbye.